All right, we hit one after the hour, so let's get things kicked off. I want to first off thank everybody for joining us today. It's awesome to see the comments and where everybody's coming from. And I think one of the really fascinating parts about these roundtables, and I was talking to the guys about this before we got on, is that we're able to bring people from different backgrounds into the same room that really have the same problems, right? And so getting different perspectives on this technician shortage and how hard it is to find talent, I think is really, really important. And so today we're talking about the role of management in technician recruitment and retention. I think in a lot of cases it can be kind of a vague situation, or it can be really tough to figure out what a manager's role is when it comes to finding good talent. And so the description we have here is the number one reason employees leave companies is because of their manager and not their job. In a market where recruiting and retaining technicians is more difficult than ever, shop owners and managers need to be doing everything they can to connect with current and prospective technicians. So we've brought three great managers onto the panel today to talk about this very thing that a lot of you struggle with. Our theme of the month for WrenchWay is great managers, and we want our clients to be out telling their stories, telling an audience how they manage and really why they feel like they're good managers, right? And so joining me today, I'm going to have each of these guys introduce themselves individually. But Duke, if you wouldn't mind starting off introducing yourself to everybody here, that would be great.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Duke Fancher. I'm Director of Service for TAG, Truck Center, and Lonestar Truck Group. We represent 9 states in the South, but we're a Freightliner and Western Star dealer. And then we also do have a Sprinter franchise. And I've been in the business going on 30 years. So glad for everybody joining us and hope we can share some good information today.
All right, Tim.
Yeah, Tim Winkeler. I'm the president and CEO here at VIP Tires and Service, and I've been here at VIP for 12 years. Prior to that in the auto parts business, in fact, 30 years in the business out of college from University of Oklahoma. We've got 65 shops up here in Northern New England, headquartered in Maine, and we also have stores in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Vermont. We're full service tires as well as automotive service, and roughly 600 employees.
And both Duke and Tim are now veterans of our roundtables. So welcome back to the two of you. And our a first timer here, Paul, welcome to your first roundtable. Go ahead and introduce yourself, if you will.
Hi, I'm Paul Esse from Madison, Wisconsin. I work for the Zimbrick Automotive Group. I'm the Parts and Service Director at the Zimbrick European location. We have Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, and Sprinter at our location, and I have been with Zimbrick 21 years.
All right, all great organizations and great partners of ours. We appreciate your time, guys, and look forward to hearing what you have to say in this roundtable. Now, before we get started, I did want to point out, if you do have a comment, use the chat function on the bottom of the screen. If you have a question for us as a group, please use the Q&A, because oftentimes that chat can become really, really busy and maybe we'll miss your question. But if you're able to put it in the Q&A, we'll make sure that we get to it and answer it. We may, depending on how the flow of the conversation is going, hold that till the end. We'll just kind of see how the conversation goes, and we'll do our best to get to all of your questions. So with that, I want to kick things off and talk about this really, really, really important topic. And I'm going to start off with Duke, and I want to ask you, what things does your company do to actually recruit technicians, and really, how do you help support those efforts?
So Jay, I would say the probably, retention, and we're going to get into that. That's a bigger piece of it for what we do. But as far as recruiting, there's always the number one way we get validated key employees would be through employee referrals. We do have bonus programs available, but most of the time that's not necessary. As if you're working for a good place, you want your friends to be there, whether it's friends or family. and that's probably our number one go-to. We do some social media, word of mouth. We are partnered with several tech schools across the Mid-South, and then family and friends. They want, their family to work here as technicians as well. And so that's probably our main lineup right there.
I think what you said there is really powerful, Duke, because at the end of the day, I still think word of mouth is the most powerful thing, right? Because they're getting that from somebody they know, like, and trust. It's going to be somebody that that has a reputation and isn't going to lie to them, right? They're going to tell them probably what their firsthand experience is, and if they trust them, it just makes it a much easier recruitment process. And I think it foundationally, what I would say there and point out is it takes having a good place to work at in the first place, right? Because if you don't have a good place to work at, it's going to be really hard for your current staff to be able to tell others to come join you.
Right. And on the flip side of that, Jay, they're not going to refer somebody that's not going to perform well either. So it goes both ways.
That's when you know you got a good culture, right? Tim, tell me a little bit about your recruitment process and how you get out in front of technicians.
Yeah, obviously, Duke hit on a couple points. So did you. What comes to my mind in terms of the role of management, first of all, it's just giving the right tools and resources to the team that's out there doing the recruiting. So, obviously we use the WrenchWay Find a Wrench service has been great for us, connecting us with great professionals, and surprisingly, many of them looking to relocate. And, we've been a great destination for a lot of technicians who were looking for coming up here to New England. But in terms of, at the management level, I think you touched on it. It's the culture. One of the things that, we're pretty proud of here at VIP is that we've built this very people-focused culture in the business. So when we go out and we start talking to a candidate about coming to work at VIP, we don't have to sell them anything. We just have to tell them what it's like working at VIP. And we have to talk about what we do and our processes. And so having that culture, building the culture in the company so that you don't have to feel like you have to go out and tell a story. All you got to do is, tell the truth, and it attracts the right kind of people to the business. The other big thing that we did a few years ago that has really helped us from a recruiting standpoint is involving our marketing team in putting together that package of materials. So every one of our district managers and regional guys who's out there recruiting on a pretty regular basis, they've got stacks and stacks of these, VIP folders, and it's filled with all kinds of information. It's all of our career pathing programs. It's our pay programs. It's everything about the history of the company, and our marketing department make sure all that stuff is on brand. So when you get that recruiting folder and you page through it and you start reading through everything, you start to get a sense for our company, our brand, and our culture.
And what I love about you guys, Tim, and this is something we talked about, we did a podcast a while back where you talked pretty extensively about this, but you took a proactive approach to listening to your current staff, right? And I think some of the cool part about what you guys did was it wasn't always this way. It took you kind of getting really involved to change some of these things. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you listen and really have been able to understand where your employees fall at?
Yeah, obviously that goes into, the retention piece a lot more. But we give our employees a huge voice in the company. We have a annual survey where every employee gets a survey and they fill it out based on their satisfaction levels. And most importantly, we want to hear what they don't like about working at VIP. I always say my dream is to wake up and every single VIP employee loves their job. And, until that day, I've still got work to do. And so, giving them a voice, having that survey, and then on top of the survey, even more importantly, our senior leadership team, all 6 of us, all of our regional guys, we spend the whole month of February in meetings, and we meet with every employee face to face. We do it in groups of 15 or 20 at a time, and we cover the results of the survey of what our employees are telling us about what they like and don't like about the company. Most importantly, we're asking them, hey, if you ran this place, what would you do to make it better? How can we make this a better company for you? so that you can come in smiling, loving your job, and taking care of customers every day. And so giving the employees a voice, we tell our candidates about that culture. That's part of our culture story. As with any time, a candidate's, only going to believe some portion of what they hear because they've been potentially down the road before where they are told a story and they get to the company and maybe it's not everything that it was cracked up to be. So for us, that's a big part, though, of making sure that people realize they have that voice, and that's what keeps them around.
Yeah, I think those are all really solid points, and we'll dive into the retention side a little bit more. I did want you to recall that story right off the bat because I do think it's so important to the recruiting side, right? Like, if you don't have your retention side in order, you're going to have a real problem when it comes out to recruiting. So being able to get that in line, and the reason why I love your story so much is because you came from a place where it wasn't happening and you made that change and really got proactive with it. So,
oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, but prior to doing this, if you go back 15 or 20 years, the prior owner of this company, used to pound his fist on the table and say, $10 an hour, that's all I pay a mechanic. And he'd say, training's a waste of time. And he hated the service business. That was way before my time. But when we sold off our auto parts division and just got laser focused on becoming the best in tire and service, this is what it allowed us to do. It allowed us to look in the mirror and say, we're not very good and we need to be a lot better than this. And if we're going to attract the right kind of people, then we've got to build a culture and we've got to build the kind of company that they want to come work for.
Huge credit to looking in the mirror, because I think that's such an underrated thing in general. I don't think a lot of shops are really good at that, right? Like, I think we can kind of look at our opportunity through rose-colored glasses, and with that, we fail to look at ways or areas for improvement, and that is such a killer. Like, if you just think that you've done an outstanding job, which a lot of you have done a really good job, but you can't have that mentality. You've got to be looking at continually improving and look, and to improve, you got to know what you suck at, right? Like, and to be able to listen and truly get good, candid feedback. I think that is just excellent insight. Now, Paul, didn't mean to leave you out here. Let's get to you. Talk to us a little bit about your recruiting strategies and really what you've done to find that good quality talent out there.
Well, I think, along the same lines as Duke and Tim, they had a lot of good information there, but I think a couple of things that I would mention is that don't be afraid to try things that are a little bit different. We're all kind of looking, even all the trades, we're all looking for the same type of person. So I think just try to look at some different avenues of trying to search out some folks. I think working with you guys, Jay, with WrenchWay has been fantastic. I love what you guys are doing. And it's getting us in front of a lot of different people that we haven't been in front before. And we've been spending a lot of time recently at our local community colleges and our local high schools, just building relationships, youth apprentice, starting out with some folks that are in high school, let them do some job shadowing, bring them in and see what the culture is like, see what the job is like, and hopefully build that relationship. So when they are getting ready to go through the community college, that you've already got that base with them. And I think along with the other gentleman too, when you have a solid culture and you are good at retaining people, the interview process for me, when we bring a technician in that we're getting ready to take the next step, I'll let them spend an afternoon in the shop. They're going to hear it exactly how it is from the other technicians, and we don't have anything to hide. So I think that is the best way, because we want to make sure not only are they a good fit for us, we're a good fit for them. It's got to go both ways. So I think I would say those three things have been working for us.
Well, a couple things really stick out to me. One is that you take the approach of nothing to hide, right? Because I think when technicians look at an offering, they can tell if a shop is trying to hide something, or that maybe they're glorifying something that isn't so great. And I just don't understand why we try to hide that stuff. If they sign up to come work for us, they're going to see it firsthand anyway. So you may as well be upfront with them. And I think we've all been probably in that position at some point. I know I have, at least, where I signed up for something back early in my career where I was promised a lot of stuff, and when I got there, it wasn't reflective of what they said in the interview process. And talk about, how are you supposed to build loyalty with your crew if you've lied to them right off the bat? Like, it just doesn't work. So that transparency, being open, it kind of opening the curtain in general so people can get a look at the insides and see what you're all about, I think is critical. The other piece that I would say, and in my discussions with you guys at Zimbrick, is so exciting to me is your involvement with schools, and I think one question that I would have would be, and this might go to the crowd or to all of you, is what is your stance on hiring somebody under the age of 18? I know I hear this all over the board, different policies, but being able to get into high schools, I think, is imperative to our industry. I know there's statistics that show that if you get them in at an early age, the likelihood of them staying increases dramatically. So, Paul, any insight there as far as the employment of somebody under the age of 18?
Sure. We're able to employ high school students that are under 18, but they're not able to drive vehicles. So it turns into more of a job shadow. And what we try to do is just try to give them an idea of what different parts of the dealership are like, whether they're working with the express team or maybe a shop foreman for a while, or maybe with an advisor or even parts. But once they're 18, then we can have them start driving cars, and that changes things quite a bit, as you can imagine. But it just depends on the person, and how quickly we move them up is probably more important than the age, I think.
Has that always been the case where you could bring somebody on under 18, but they couldn't drive, or has that changed over the years?
I think it's always kind of been that rule, at least as long as I can remember at Zimbrick. I think it has to do more with insurance than anything, honestly. But I think what I think more than anything is with, like you said, building this relationship with these young people that are looking to get into this industry. And as soon as you have somebody that comes in and you see their eyes go wide open when they see a vehicle that's got an engine torn down or something like that, and they really start to get interested, asking some great questions, get to know the rest of the team, get to know the processes, it makes everything that much easier.
Tim, anything to add to the under 18 conversation?
Yeah, a little bit. We addressed this a few years ago, and to your point, Jay, for many years we didn't go there. You had to be 18, and that was just a strict policy. And as we started to get, probably 3 or 4 years ago, we started to get more involved with a lot more tech schools and the high school automotive programs. We started to have these 17-year-old kids who, wanted to come work part-time. And so we actually partnered with our insurance company, and we met with them and said, hey, this is something we want to do. What kind of guardrails do we need to put around this? Because at the same time, I didn't want to just open it up and say, okay, anybody who's 17, come apply, and just, put us at a lot of risk. So we ended up putting together a policy so that somebody who is 17 but not yet 18, who has to be in a automotive program. So we have to meet with the program director or someone at that school to make sure that this is a valid, student is in this program. And then we get, they have to be signed off as partnered with one of our master technicians, as well as our service manager. I believe there may even be a parent signature on there as well, since they're not 18 yet. So we've got a full documented policy that our district managers and our HR managers use whenever we come across these students who would like to start working part-time in one of our shops. But once they go through that and they qualify, and they're under the guidance of one of our professional service managers and one of our technicians, then they get into that training and the onboarding just like any other new employee would, and we don't restrict them. They can drive vehicles, and I think that's because, once again, we partnered with our insurance company to do it the way that they wanted us to do it.
Well, so the question around like what management's responsibility is with this, I think you hit that squarely on the head there, Tim, which was you took the initiative to go talk to the insurance company. You took the initiative to put some process behind it, right? And I think it's really easy. I know when I was on the industry side, it was easy to use the excuse of our insurance, they don't cover it. Like we can't hire anybody under 18. And I look back at my time as a manager on the industry side, and I'm like, I didn't do a good job there. I didn't do a good enough job pushing the envelope on that. And I look back at myself and think, okay, I should have done that differently. And I think hindsight's 2020, but when you look at it, there's such a huge opportunity with young people and supporting these programs and showing them the opportunities that are out there, and not being able to employ somebody under the age of 18 really kind of creates maybe some unnecessary challenges that, for your recruitment efforts down the road. Duke, curious on the diesel side, what's your experience there? I know you're dealing with some bigger stuff in general, so it might be different, but tell me a little bit about that under 18 thing with you guys.
You know, for us, and Tim, great job going to your insurance company and hitting that head on. That's great. And so we do have students that come in, but we like to partner with a school that has a recommendation or a referral from a teacher. But one of the things that we do that is a little bit different, that has played out well for us, is we will do a 2-week rotation in the parts department, 2 weeks in the service department, 2 weeks through the sales department, and kind of get a feel for the dealership, because some people are mechanically inclined and they want to join the business, but maybe being an actual technician doesn't fit for them, but they have the wherewithal and the knowledge and the hunger to join this industry. And sometimes we end up placing them in other areas. And that's worked well for us.
Well, and I think being able, even if you do end up being a technician, getting exposure to other sides of the business helps you understand, once you're in the industry, what maybe some of the struggles are in other positions too, right? Because you can see that office position isn't, I think a lot of times the perception is, from a technician standpoint, is, oh, that service manager just sits in the office in their nice air conditioned office, and I'm out here struggling all day long, and they don't truly understand everything or grasp everything that goes into that, right?
Yeah, some of the guys and gals will tell you real quick, hey, I'd really like that inventory control piece back in the back on the warehouse. That was kind of neat, organizing the warehouse. And some will tell you, hey, I don't want to be on the front counter with the customers. That really scares me, or I'm not comfortable with that. So it really kind of helps define their path, or at an early stage.
Yeah, I love that. So let's, as far as it goes with recruiting, is there anything anybody else would want to add to this in terms of any tips, or really, I think what you guys hit on our initial kind of round here was that you've got to be transparent, you've got to be a good place to work, you've got to have referrals, right? You've got to have people that want to work there and tell their friends that they want to work there, or that you should work there. Anything over and above those types of things that we could add to this, or maybe different strategies? I'll open it up to the three of you if anybody else has anything to add.
Hey, Jay, the one thing that comes to my mind that we really haven't talked about in much detail, and not that we need to, I think you and I may have already done a whole roundtable on this, but that's the career pathing piece. One of our success stories is being able to go into other shops where maybe, there's a lot of stores out there that only do tires, and kids get into a tire shop and now they're doing slinging tires all day. And that's fine for some people. They may want a career in the tire business, and that's great. One of the things that's different about us is, that we're full service. So we've got tire and lube technicians working right next to an Esse certified master, or maybe even a GM master, or somebody who has joined VIP after becoming a master at one of the dealerships. And so for the technicians out there who are looking for growth, they're looking to do more, I think investing time and putting a documented career path program in place is a huge recruiting tool, because now when you sit with someone who's at a job and you say, how would you like to have a career and not just a job? And I think that's a huge tool that management can put in place to support the efforts of those out there recruiting.
And not only that, like when you say that, you've got confidence in it, because you've put the time into it up front to know that you're telling the truth, right? You've put together a good career plan for them, and there's some structure around it. And I think there's so much impact in that, because if you just say, yeah, we got a career path, you can take training whenever you want, like over the course of it, and there's no structure behind it. I don't think that gives that technician the warm and fuzzies that
No,
you know what you're doing.
anybody can say it. You know, we've got a piece of paper that says, here's the 7 steps. Here's the certifications you need to go from step 2 to 3 or 3 to 4. And here's the productivity you need to be able to produce to get to this level. I mean, we put it all on paper so that even before the person joins the company, they know exactly what the steps are and what the expectations are.
Yeah, we've got. I know that's going to generate some interest. I already see the question of what are the steps. So we'll maybe dive into that a little bit later because Tim, you've got a lot of great insight with that. Now, one other thing I want to ask about, and this is something when I'm out doing presentations and talking with different companies that it always drives me crazy, is that everybody relies, or it seems like everybody really relies on a job posting to kind of tell a candidate why they're different, right? And when I say that, almost all of them say they have great management, they have a family atmosphere, they love their people, you know, and yada, yada, yada. But that doesn't give them anything that's really unique to that shop. And so what I want to ask the three of you, and Tim, I'm going to start with you again here, because one of the benefits that always stands out to me with you guys is your approach on ASE certifications. And maybe that to me is something that is clearly different than most shops that are out there. And do you want to share a bit of information as to what I'm talking about there?
Sure. Yeah. And, you know, ASE's, it's not the end all be all, but for an independent shop like us, it's sort of what we have to sort of build around. So, you know, what we do is our ASE program, and this goes back to that survey and those meetings I talked about earlier. The very first year we did those, which is 9 years ago now, we challenged one of our mechanics who had been with us a long time, really great mechanic. We said, why don't you have any ASE certifications? And after we pushed him enough, he finally said, you know, what's in it for me? Why should I go get certifications? Like, you know, you just want me to have a patch on my shoulder. I don't care about a patch, you know? So, and then we started asking other guys and they'd say, well, you know what? I don't have the money. You guys will reimburse me if I pass, but what if I don't pass? Now I'm out $70, $80, whatever, you know? And so that first year, one of the biggest changes we made among many was we said, okay, you know what? We're going to pay for it all up front. And I don't care if you pass or fail. We bought every ASE study guide known to man, and we put it out there for every one of our employees. And we said, go take exams, go learn, go partner with somebody at your shop and learn about the brake systems so that you can go take the A5 and pass the A5. And so we went from spending about $3,000 a year in reimbursements. Now we spend about $100,000 a year as a company on ASE certifications. And I can't think of a better spend for our people than to give them that freedom that we put the control in their hands. And then that goes hand in hand with the career path. We said, you know, if you're an entry-level tire and lube tech, go get your ASE G1, the general automotive certification. Get your state inspection license. You know, there's some building block certifications that when you get those certifications, it's proof that you're progressing and that you're going to invest in yourself. You know, we're going to invest in you, but you got to invest in yourself. You got to invest the time and everything. But we gladly pay for all that. And so we sort of just tried to basically take every barrier out and give people that freedom to kind of create their own career path. And the ASEs are how we build that is through the progression of the ASEs.
Yeah, and you really remove excuses, right? Like I think if somebody says, well, I would do that, but well, there's no but there. Like you're laying it
Right.
you're laying out the red carpet for them.
We manage their ASE page. We schedule their tests. I mean, we have taken every friction point out of the process, and so that's been, you know, huge for us because, to your point, there's not a lot of other shops out there that we're competing with candidates for who are going to tell that same story when it comes to helping them get these certifications and gain knowledge. And then, of course, most recently, we've added a ton of hands-on training. We partner with an organization named Garage Gurus, and they have a mobile training center. We've got that scheduled for 18 full days of training this year. We'll have over 200 of our associates go through Garage Gurus hands-on training this year. It's classroom and hands-on, but every one of those is in support of their career path.
I absolutely love that. Shout out to Garage Gurus as well. They're a great company, great people. Paul, anything that sticks out to you as well? Like, I think when you're looking at those things that make you unique and that stand out, one of the things that I think is so important is telling your story. Because you guys are in our backyard, I know Zimbrick, your guys' brand is very well represented throughout the Madison area, and everybody knows who Zimbrick is, right? So you've got that brand recognition already, but do you see opportunities to be able to differentiate yourself from maybe that independent shop down the road, or maybe a competitive dealer down the road, to show why you're different?
Yeah, I think so, Jay. Not only with the culture, which we could talk a lot about that in a lot of different ways, but I think just little things like employee recognition, doing the lunches. A few days ago or a couple weeks ago when Bratfest was in town, we did the take your brat to work day, and I went out and I bought 100 brats, and everybody had brats for breakfast. It was fantastic.
Tell me you're from Wisconsin without telling me you're from Wisconsin. No.
Right. We what a great breakfast, by the way. But then we do bring in food trucks, and just for example, I'll be taking my service advisor crew out to dinner next week, just as a thank you to for the job they're doing with everything that's going on in the business right now, and as busy as we are. So a lot of little things like that, I think, are important, because it's not only going to make the people that you work with feel better about where you're at, but when somebody comes in to do an interview or ask questions about your dealership, I think they can sense it, they can feel it when they walk in or they talk to somebody at our facility, that they really do enjoy to work here.
Yeah, and I've been able to see that reflected directly from folks that have worked at Zimbrick over the years. Take a lot of pride in working there, and I think you can sense that every time you talk to a Zimbrick employee. Now, Duke, how about you? Down in the South, what do you got cooking down there?
Well, I mean, like Paul said, I mean, I think you guys seen pictures of me grilling steaks for record months across our company and doing things like that. And those are the things that you can't just do once. I mean, those are things that you have to do all the time. They have to be part of your culture. People need to be asking, hey, Paul, when are we doing brats again? Those are awesome, and they expect that. And that becomes ingrained in your culture. But Tim, I got a comment. I really, which you're the CEO of the company, and that gives you some leverage, where Jay said, hey, maybe when I was a younger manager, I didn't push the envelope hard enough when it come to change in insurance regulations, right? And you're in the driver's seat saying, hey, no, we're going to remove these roadblocks. We are not going to make you pay. And you went out to the employees and you surveyed them and you said, hey, why won't you do this? I don't understand. And they said, well, I'll tell you why, because, hey, what's in it for me, right? And then what does that get me once I do all this? And then what if I do fail, And so all the pressure's on the technician. And the reason I call that out, not only did you tear it down, but you made a change. And now, I mean, if I was a young tech after this call, I'd be calling you, Tim, going, hey, where's your openings at? But I'd be willing to bet you probably don't have a lot of openings, because people want to come to work for companies like yours and Paul's that are doing the right thing, and for TAG. But one of the things I want to comment on is, as an industry and as a society, I think a lot of times we just tend to live with those roadblocks. When you look at today's how to get a job, I see people and they just spend hours and hours and hours on a computer filling out online applications that never get answers. There's no responses. And then if they do get a call, maybe it's from HR, maybe it's not. But rarely is it the service manager, rarely is it in a timely fashion, because if I'm a tech looking for a job, I'm probably not happy with my foreman or my manager, and I'm in an emotional state, right? I want to make a change now. So somebody, please call me. I don't want to go through a personality profile. I want to turn wrenches. So I want to go where somebody's going to reach out to me quickly, make a difference, and get my interest, pique my interest. So I think a lot of times as an industry, I've said it for years, we kind of get stuck on our ways. Well, you got to go to night shift and you're probably going to do clutches and you're going to do brake jobs. And then in a year or two, we'll get you into some training, no matter really how good you are. And I think we have to change that mindset. How do we move faster? How do we appeal to the masses that are wanting to come to work for us? And how do we tear down those roadblocks of, well, you got to come in and fill out an application, and then we'll schedule 3 interviews with you, and it's going to take 2 weeks. These guys and gals don't have that kind of time. So I would say the biggest thing is move quickly, and don't be afraid to go to your CEOs and to your HR folks and say, hey, this is hindering me from hiring people that I need to do the job. So that would be the last piece, Jay, on the recruiting side, with only mentioning this, that if your number one problem is hiring techs in your business, I would ask you to ask yourself, how much time do you spend on your number one problem? And the answer to that is normally not as much as you should, or it probably wouldn't be your number one problem. I learned that the hard way many years ago. So that's all, Jay.
Duke, I 100% agree. I think for our experience working with shops everywhere, that is one of the most obvious things to me from an outsider's perspective, is that oftentimes it's the number one priority, yet on their to-do list, it's like number 100, like in terms of people. And not only just recruiting, but as it pertains to retention, right? I think it's really easy as a manager, and we hear it all the time, work on your business, not in your business, right? And it can get really easy to get into the mundane day-to-day tasks, check in, check out, and you forget about your number one priority. You take your eye off the ball, and without good people, your business isn't going to work regardless of how hard you work, right? Like, and I think that's what we have to get in the mindset of in our industry, is really doing what we say we prioritize, right? Or putting an actual prioritization on it. And we, again, have the luxury of seeing this from an outsider's perspective with a lot of our clients. And that's one of the things we try to stress with everybody is, hey, listen, if this is your number one priority, make it look like your number one priority, because oftentimes it just falls to the wayside. And I see it all the time with shops where they end up with a full shop and they are really happy. And again, this is something I got burned by as a manager, was I got kind of a little fat and happy. And then one of my techs got in a car accident, and it changed the game, right? Because we had just got the shop to the point where it was a really well-run shop and very productive. But when that person got in the car accident, it threw everything off, because now we're desperate to find somebody, and we make a stupid hire after that. And I think what happens and what we've really got to change is our mentality towards this. And we hear proactive recruiting, yet so few people actually do it. So few people actually show off who they are, show off their brand. And as we move forward, I think Paul mentioned this earlier, it's not just us fighting against other shops for this talent. We're fighting other industries. We're fighting other blue collar skilled trades for these same people. And if we're not putting priority on this, we're going to fall quickly behind. And I would argue in a lot of cases, we're already drastically behind, right? So great points by all of you here. Now, I want to get to the core of what I consider the core of a good recruiting program, which is retention, right? It's really hard to go out, and Tim alluded to this earlier, but it's hard to go out and recruit when you can't take care of the people that are already in your shop, right? It's hard to really go out with confidence and say, hey, we're a great place to work. We got a great culture, but we can't keep anybody here. Text talk. And I think really being able to take care of your people is such a big deal. So I think, Paul, I'll start with you on this. And this is some stuff we've already kind of talked about, but let's go a little deeper. What things does your company do to actually retain technicians, and how do you feel your role plays into that? What do you do to help support the retention?
Sure. I think we do a really good job at listening to our employees, and Tim touched on that too, and that's huge. Interviewing and talking to some other folks from other shops, it's amazing to me how service managers can make a technician's job more difficult than it should be. We want to take out whatever obstacles are in their way to do their job, whether that be training, an extra computer, another scan tool, whatever it is. if it is prohibiting them from doing their job and helping their partner next to them do their job and help keep our customers happy, you really need to look at what's more important. And none of this stuff is cheap. I understand that, but I think little things like that, it's amazing that when I talk to some other shops on just little things that they could do that could improve a technician's life so much, and they just don't. And I think being able to look at yourself in the mirror, look at your organization, your shop, and really listen to what they're saying. I think, like Tim said too, good or bad, you want to hear what people are saying, and the bad stuff or the stuff that they think you can improve on, that's the most important.
And yes, I think you said a couple things there that really stuck out to me. One is actually listening. I think we've talked about that, but what the other thing is really facing the fact that being a technician is not an easy job, and we might try to glorify it and try to make it sound, sexy in some regard, but at the end of the day, it is a physical job, and there are opportunities where maybe it's not so physical, but I think being realistic to the fact that, this is not easy on your body. It's not easy from a mental standpoint. It can really kick your butt if you get your tail kicked by a tough job. Understanding that and knowing that, that is such an important piece. And then the fact that you ask the question to yourself, and this is something that I think all managers should take home, is ask yourself how you can make that technician's life easier. Are there opportunities to hear them out and be able to really identify those things that make their job more challenging and simplify them, make it easier on them, because at the end of the day, it's a pretty challenging and tough job. Tim, I know you've got a lot to add in this regard. Whether it's the surveying or being able to actively listen, but anything that you would add in terms of what you do to retain techs and maybe what your manager's roles are in that relationship?
Sure. We talked about culture. I think retention is there is no one thing. There's no 3 or 5 things. It's like everything. Like retention is the entire employee experience. And so you have to know, like, why do people join? Why do people stay? You have to understand their motivations. We don't talk a lot about pay because obviously we're trying to, Jay, I'm with you, man. We're trying to revolutionize the industry, and it's all about work culture and it's all about these other things. But at the end of the day, you got to pay people well. We've been aggressively increasing, our compensation programs for current employees as well as to attract new employees. So you got to pay people really well. And somebody put in the comments when I was talking about ASEs, about, well, they're going to get their ASEs and they're going to leave. Well, you know what? If there's a place out there that's going to treat them better than your place, then maybe they will leave. And at the end of the day, you know what? Some of the people are going to leave. We've definitely had people use our ASE program, become a master technician. Sometimes they might get an offer that, we just decide, you know what, you're not really ready for that yet. So you need to go maybe get your nose bloodied somewhere else. And many of them end up coming back and they're awesome. And sometimes they go and they learn and they come back a better technician or a better manager than they were, before they left our company. So we're just fine with them sort of using our career path programs. And honestly, I've told many a technician who work at VIP who have a dream to own their own shop. I'm like, that's awesome. I hope you do someday. And you know what? We've got a profit and loss class that you can go through so you can understand how the business works, how pricing works, how margins work, so that when you do go open your shop, it doesn't fail like so many of them do. And so we just try to be, I just think retention's about everything. And, we do a ton of leadership training with 65 locations. You can imagine that, I tell our guys all the time that we have a culture, we have a VIP culture, we have priorities and values and things that we do as a company that creates what we call the VIP culture. But at the end of the day, we've got 65 cultures because I've got 65 shops with a manager in each one. And, there's a lot of independence in this business, and a lot of our managers get to take the what they like about the VIP culture, and then they take some of what they learned at their last job, and they take some of their personality, and they throw it all together, and that becomes the culture at their store. And so when I go out and visit our teams, you know, I come back and I start talking to our leadership team about, you know, hey man, this guy is great with team chemistry, and he's buying lunches, and man, his guys are like talking to him all the time. And then I go to another shop, and it's a really successful shop, but maybe their team operates a little bit differently, you know, and they attract a different type of personality and people, you know, you can win many different ways in this business. At the end of the day, it comes down to investing in your people, and that's another sort of, you know, catchphrase, if you will, but we use it a lot. All of these things we're talking about, we look at them as investments. We don't talk about the expense of, you know, benefits or ASEs or things. We talk about these as investments. Whenever we're doing something, making a change, whether it's a benefit improvement, compensation improvement, or all these other programs, we talk about them as investments. And luckily, our owner is in it for the long haul, and he's looking at this over the long period, and he allows us to make decisions that, you know, may not be the most profitable thing to do this month or this quarter, but we all know that it's the best thing to do for the long-term health of the business. And when you can line things up that work well for the financial performance of the company, it works well for the employees, and ultimately is going to turn into a great customer experience. That's, you know, that's the culture that we're looking for. And that's, to me, that you have to put all that together in order to really improve retention.
You've got me so fired up with what you just said there. There's so many things there that stuck out to me. One of which, and this is something we talk about a lot again with our WrenchWay clients, is the importance of showing off who's in each facility, right? Especially for those of you out there that have multiple locations. Oftentimes we get stuck in the big brand, right? We get stuck in the big name, but we fail to share the stories of the individuals in those locations. And as it pertains to retention, I think showcasing those people is such an important piece, because while they're signing up to work for the big brand, ultimately they're going to be working side by side with the people in that location. And I think being able to show off those people, and there's so many shops out there that are like, I don't want to show off my people because some people are going to poach them. And I always say, you're worried about the wrong thing. You should be worried about making a culture so great that nobody wants to leave. And I think you hit that directly on the point there. That got me super fired up, because that's something I hammer on every single day is you're worrying about the wrong thing. Worry about making a place so good that people can't leave or don't want to leave.
And not just that they don't leave or don't want to leave, but that they want to brag about it, you know, that they want to. There's a leadership book that we use in part of our training. I love. It's called It's Your Ship, by the authors Michael Abrashoff, and he talks about how he and his team, his leadership team, basically turned one of the worst performing ships in the Navy into one of the best performing ships in the Navy. And one of the chapters is called Let Them Show Off the Ship. And, you know, I love that. And I love this idea that get people so ingrained in the culture that they talk about it. They, you know, if you were to be connected to a bunch of the people who are, you know, our technicians and our service managers and our district managers on Facebook, you would see all kinds of posts on a daily basis of, you know, right now we've got 12 of our master techs going through EV training, and they're all posting on Facebook about how VIP is investing in EV training for them, you know, for the future and all that. So when you do these things and you invest in your people are going to go promote your business, whether you like it or not. We happen to like it.
They're going to run through a wall for you. And I got in the chat, somebody asked, oh, there we go. It's Your Ship. There we go. We got, there we go. All right, perfect. Duke, anything to add there?
Oh yeah. Hey, that's a great book, Tim. I've read it many times. Love the story. It's about empowering your people, and we're in the same business. We can't run our business without our techs. But a couple thought provokers, maybe, Jay. But one of the things I wanted to say, number one, thank you to all the technicians. If there are any technicians or former technicians like myself on the call, and really, technicians are brilliant athletes that are in a timed race for every minute of their day. And that's a powerful statement. I think they're the only person in the car or truck world, or maybe anywhere turning wrenches, where everyone else around them is either in an hourly or a salaried position, and it doesn't, to an extent, really doesn't matter how well you perform. I mean, Paul, if you and I had a report that was due to Jay today and it was done by 1 o'clock this afternoon and we didn't get there, wouldn't come out of our pocket. He might, get onto us a little bit, but these guys are in a timed race every day, and they're brilliant. They're brilliant people. There's more computers on today's trucks than there were on the first space shuttle. So when you think about that, I think as an industry, we have to recognize and appreciate the technicians for what they really bring to the table. It's not the way it was even 30 years ago, 40 years ago. I mean, there's still a lot of manual labor, you're right, but there's a lot of computing and snapshots and data points and data mining and so many of those parts of their jobs that didn't exist before. So when it comes to retention, number one, Jay, we're down in the South, I'm headquartered out of Memphis, and it's hot, it's humid and it's hot, but all of our shops have air conditioning, and they're all LED lights, well lit, very safe, very organized. And that is not for us, that is for our technicians. And our owners will tell you, we didn't air condition the shops for an ROI on the technicians or so that you would work harder or that we maybe get more efficient. We're doing that because these are our people. This is our family. We want them to go home at the end of the day and be able to play ball with their kids or do things that they like to do, whatever that may be, and not be completely fatigued out at the end of the day. And when you do the right things for the right reasons, and it creates that culture, I think, and Tim, pay is important, and it's a little further down the line on the retention piece. I think we have more. If you look at how many techs you need, and if most of us went in and looked at what our turnover was across our companies, we had the people. We didn't need to add anybody if we would have just kept the ones we had. In fact, we probably have too many. And it's expensive to go through a hiring process and even an exiting process. But, the culture, respect and genuine appreciation myself, our owners, we're on the shop floor every day talking to our techs. We know them by name, we know their families. A lot of cases, their families work here with us. And so it's just a genuine care for the other person and really, really being a part of their lives. And training, Tim, you mentioned training, that is critical. A lot of the Freightliner dealers, we factory certify our own guys, and house, and that works wonders as far as bringing new technicians on board. We're able to put them on a training path and then be able to train them up to what we need over a period of time and help them on that career path. So the training is a big part of it. But there's so many, the cookouts, the paintball games, the sporting events, the family night we just had at the Memphis Redbirds a few weeks ago, so there's, we had over 400 family members there, and just a genuine appreciation. And I think one other thing, with the surveys you talked about, Tim, is giving that employee a voice, whether it's a weekly huddle, a monthly meeting, a safety meeting, or just a general survey, giving the employee a voice and genuinely listen to, hey, this is what I'm going through, or these are the problems I have, or this is how I can make things better, or how you can help me make things better, and then take action. I think that goes a long way.
And not punishing them for candid feedback, right? Like, I
No,
think there's so
absolutely.
many employees that are so terrified of giving their true feedback that they never give it. And the more comfortable you can make them with you, and the more you're accepting of that candid feedback, the better feedback you're going to get. And I'll refer back to Tim's podcast episode when you guys got the most candid feedback I think I've ever heard. And rather than fighting against it or pushing back, you guys fully embraced it. And to me, that was inspiring. And I think others, if I would encourage everybody to go out and listen to that podcast episode, because it just, there's so much detail in that, that Tim really graced us with in that episode that talks in depth about that. It really, really was good stuff. we're getting close to our time, and we do have a few questions. So do you guys mind sticking around to answer a few questions here and trying to make sure that we try to get to these? We'll do our best to get to all of these here. And Lori, I see, what podcast are you referring to? I believe that Sarah had put a link to it up in the chat, which was probably quite a ways up. But Sarah, I don't know if you would mind posting that podcast link again. That would be helpful. Okay, so I'm going to start with the bottom here. What type of work schedules do you find help retain technicians? And I'll open this up to the crew, but kind of talking about work schedules and maybe the changes there that we've seen over the years. Anybody have any insight to that? I'll open it up to the floor.
Flexibility is key. I think we have to look at things a little bit differently than we did 5 or 10 years ago. And I think especially with the newer workforce and families and things like that, you have to be willing to be flexible as long as you can get, at the end of the day, get done what you need to get done.
How hard is that from an employer standpoint, the flexibility in a schedule where you're scheduling their time out? Any advice to the shops out there listening in terms of how to work around flexibility with an employee where every minute of their day is tracked?
You know, we're open 7 days a week here in Memphis, but a lot of our shops are not, Jay. So we have to be there for the demand of the customer. So it is a hard juggling act. The best feedback I can give is be candid with what you have to offer. Don't hire a guy on days for 90 days to train him and then surprise him that he's got to go to night shift at the end of 90 days and he's not expecting that. Just be candid with what you have to offer and make sure that it's a good fit from the beginning.
Yeah, and you know, I would repeat that flexibility is key. There's a balancing act there, right? So Duke said you gotta be there when the customer needs you to be there. We're also 7 days a week, but you know what? We find a good fit. So we've got a shop, and we've got several of our shops where the technicians all wanted to go 410s, and so we get together and we've got a formula for how you make 410s work. If you've got enough people, that's where it comes back to recruiting. If you've got enough technicians, you can make 410s work and still cover all 7 days. Sometimes you can't if you don't have enough talent, and you got to be able to have the right talent in the store at the right time. You know, but ultimately, we've definitely become more flexible, and that's part of how we attract people as well, is that we will find a way to make things work for them. And you know what? When you're flexible with them, then they also give you that extra day when you need it.
That is some great advice. Next question is, in today's world, with younger applicants and where technology is at, have you found better response from applicants when attempting first contact via email or phone calls? I, as a service manager, will get a notification from an applicant with their resume, and I send them an email directly asking to reach out to me via email or call the shop to talk about the position. Oftentimes, I never get a response. Try then to reach out with a phone call and still get nothing back. I'll add my 2 cents there just from the recruiting standpoint. In my background, especially with young applicants, try text messaging. Text messaging is really powerful. It's read fast, and the speed of your response is so critical. If you wait for 24 hours, the likelihood of them responding, I view it as like the first 48. If anybody's ever watched that show, my sister told me about it. If they want to catch a murderer, they have to catch them within the first 48 hours. Otherwise, that person's gone. And it's very similar here. If you wait for 24 hours, that person is gone. So just speed to the applicant. And anybody else want to add anything to that one?
No, texting is what came to my mind too.
Agree.
And don't give up after one. That's one thing that we always told our clients, or tell our clients, is if you try it once and give up, there's a lot of times where maybe they're working and they have a no cell phone policy. They can't get to their phone until later, and they've got a million things going on. They got to get home to their kid's soccer game, and give them the priority. We talk about prioritizing this. Reach out to them more than once. Really make it, be proactive with it.
I mean, I got kids in college and out of college. I tell them all the time, if you want that job, be persistent. Be the most persistent candidate. And if you're a company and you want to hire somebody, be the most persistent company that's recruiting that person.
I 100% agree. That's just good life advice in general. Mary Levenhagen says, we are trying to put together a training program for our techs and service advisors. Any input from the table that can help set guidelines would be appreciated. Any tips or guidelines that could help Mary in putting together a training program?
I would say, because I don't know if it's automotive or truck or what type of, but I think with any shop, the techs are going to know where they want the training from and where they need it from, whether it's like Tim does with Esse or like Freightliner does in-house. I think you need to maybe put a little of your own roundtable together and bring in a few of the key players and ask them, hey, what does this need to look like? You guys help design it and I'll help get you the training.
Exactly.
Love the input side. Paul, anything you would add to that?
I know that there's a lot of outfits out there too. We've brought in some outside sources like Dealer Pro that have helped us with some of our advisor training. NEDA has some great training. And as far as our technicians, we rely mostly on the manufacturer. It's driven that way, at least in the dealership. But as far as management and leadership training, we've gone to a lot of really good outside sources that have made a huge difference.
Yeah, and I empathize with all you managers out there that have a big team of technicians. I've been in that spot, and keeping up with training is really, really hard. And it is. I think we undervalue or maybe underestimate how much time we spend in organizing training, and that is it can eat you up. Training is a challenging thing to stay on top of. Last three are kind of geared towards Tim here, and some questions and comments. Tim, I would love it if you could share some information on that program, what it looks like, and how you got involved with the school to set that up. I'm guessing Emily is referring to the involvement with the insurance or the under 18 side. That was back at 1:21 p.m. Central Time. So it's been a while ago since you wrote that comment. Sorry about that, Emily.
Yeah. Well, hey, any of that stuff, Jay, you or Sarah can reach out, and I'm more than happy to share any of the materials that we've put together through your organization, and then you guys can share them back out to anybody who's interested in them.
And that kind of answers William Vittorini's comment as well. One last one, and then we'll let you guys go. Tim, and this I think could probably be open to the group as well, but have you found that group meetings produce more honest feedback for negating fear of speaking up?
The key is not to get defensive.
It's hard, right?
You got to have thick skin, and you've got to know going in that you're going to hear some stuff that you don't like to hear. And quite frankly, if you don't hear some stuff you don't like to hear, then you haven't created the right atmosphere. You've got to create a comfortable atmosphere. You've got to tell people. I mean, Jay, I shared it on the podcast, but in our first survey, somebody put a comment into the survey that when we asked them what would you do if what's the best thing VIP could do? And the answer was mass suicide by senior leadership.
That's as candid of feedback as you could get.
And we didn't take that out of the survey. We printed it along with every other comment, and we showed it off. And we told every employee, look, hey, you know what? One of your coworkers would like us to all go away. And of all the great ideas we got this year, and we're going to implement a lot of them, that ain't one of them. But you know what? I'm glad this person spoke up, because that means we still got work to do, because my job ain't done till that person loves their job too.
Oh, that is still one of my favorite stories of all time. It is really, really good. Paul or Duke, I'll let you maybe chime in on that before we log off here.
Nobody likes to hear that they have
go ahead, Paul.
Sometimes you just got to look yourself in the mirror and look at your folks. They're trying to make you better, and they're trying to make your shop better.
Duke, we'll finish off with you.
No, I agree. And Tim and Paul, thanks for sharing today. I mean, I learned some things, and you got to be willing to listen to your people. And for a takeaway, I would say know your people and genuinely care about them, and let them know that you care, and It'll show.
Amen.
Well, guys, we're past our time, and I, as always, greatly appreciate you all taking time out of your extremely busy schedules to do this. I think there's so much benefit to everybody that's out there, and it couldn't have been more of a pleasure to bring the three of you together and talk about this pretty important topic. So thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jay. Thanks.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Jay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Everybody be safe.